Hi everyone and welcome. I am thrilled to kick off our CATIA Systems Masterclass. Today we are diving into the crucial topic, considerations for transitioning from SysML V1 to SysML V2. I am incredibly excited to introduce our distinguished guests for this session, Marissa MEYER and Sean DENSFORD. They are here to share their insights as we explore the current status of SysML V2 from an executive viewpoint. During and after the session, you will be able to ask questions in the Q&A section. Our experts will spend some time to answer them. As usual, the replay of this session will be on LinkedIn, YouTube, and of course, on our CATIA MBSE Cyber Systems community. So let's get started. Marissa, the stage is yours.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Marissa MEYER, and I'm excited to be joined by Sean DENSFORD today. Have you been wondering what you need to consider when making a transition to SysML V2? Perhaps you're a team lead, a director, a VP of systems engineering, and you want to make the right decisions for your team. Well, you've come to the right place. Today, I will cover the considerations from an executive level, and my goal is to stimulate thought, to provide you with an overview of the considerations when determining your SysML V2 transformation strategy. Sean will be sharing the technical details, improvements, and doing a quick demonstration of the migration capability. And at the end, like she said, we'll be covering a few questions. So be sure to put them in the chat when they arise. Sean, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Marissa. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Sean DENSFORD. I am an industry process expert for Dassault Systems. I've been in industry for about 10 years before I came over here. I've worked as an electrical engineer at Raytheon Missile Systems, and I moved over just recently to Dassault Systems to work specifically in the No Magic Group's products for Cameo and CATIA Magic.
I'm Marissa MEYER. I'm with Dassault Systems as well. I'm an industry process specialist with the CATIA Systems team, specializing in the CATIA Magic and Legacy portfolios. And I focus specifically on the adoption of MBSE within the healthcare, life science, and high-tech industries. Let's get into it. So here's our outline. I'm going to cover the SysML V2 considerations, again, from an executive perspective. Sean's going to touch on the history of SysML, transformation considerations, transition process, and the resources, and we'll have questions at the end. So when transitioning from SysML V1, is it right for my team and I right now? The question I get from a lot of the emerging MBSE markets, such as med device, is if V2 is coming, why wouldn't I just wait to start my MBSE journey until SysML V2 is available? But now many of you joining us today might already be experts for 20, 25 years, and you're ready for something new. You're excited to make this transition. No matter your perspective or experience, my role isn't to give you a recommendation or to tell you when to transition. It's simply to provoke the thought and considerations of being an early adopter. It's also to help you understand their criteria and ask the appropriate questions of your systems engineering team to set you guys up for success. So what should I consider? Let's think about this. Are you and your company an early adopter? Is it part of your culture and your identity? Think about it. Are you the first person to be at the Apple store? Is your company the first ones to make that early adoption to new technology? Keep that in mind as we talk about the things to consider. Are you new to modeling? If you're new to modeling, you could go either way, SysML V1, SysML V2. There's advantages based on the resources available or the team leads. If you've got some experts in your team, maybe they've already been doing SysML V2 and they're part of the early adoption program. Are you the architectural lead for your team? Do you have a deep understanding of the OMG specifications and you have a deep understanding of the foundational meta model? Then obviously you're probably really excited to get started with the SysML V2. What's your team's background? Are you coming from a software engineering background? Are there coders on your team? Then that might be, and you're new to modeling completely, then SysML V2 is probably a great place to start. What are your customers doing? Are your customers ready to rock and get into SysML V2, or are they the wait and see kind of people? The next one, what is the capacity of your team, of your company to take on a new project like this? This is going to be a whole other side project. Do you have the resources to provide to your team for this? What customizations, what customized profiles, what customized templates, what customized integrations have you created? These are all things to consider because you're going to have a roadmap or workarounds or really having a way to recreate some of these. Back to integrations. When we think about the iPhone, they've had 20 years of adopting. SysML V1 has had 20 years of integration advancements. Those aren't going to be all ready on day one. We'll probably get the simulation capabilities within a year, probably within a year. And so just having an idea of what you're in store for. And then are you ready to start a project now? SysML V2 is not ready for production. So you're going to need to probably consider SysML V1 to start with, and then continue on with that project. Now, what should you expect? Similar, or when we think of the people that with the iPhone, right? iPhone has been around for about 20 years. Can you believe it? Similar to SysML V1, but the apps weren't available immediately. They haven't been created yet. The resources, the shortcuts, none of that was available. But there were so many more advancements to the iPhone that people were so excited to get started and so excited to dive into the new technology. So similar to that, some of the things I really love about the SysML V2 is the contextual syntax, the variant modeling, the snapshots, the time slices, robust quantitative properties, the interoperability because of the standardized API. I'm personally excited about the streamlined terminology, simplification of some of the diagrams, and the advanced and AI capability, and it'll be more AI compatible. Some of the cons would be that the resources aren't all there yet. Our beloved Magic Grid book will probably be available in about a year. The support and training opportunities are still being created. There's a learning curve depending on who you're asking, right? So I've got a colleague that had a coding background, but then he was doing the object-oriented methodology. So there was a bit of a learning curve to kind of unlearn or relearn some of that. The other one is, but if you're brand new to SysML V2 and you have a coding background, because of the textual syntax, might be a perfect opportunity for you. The integration capabilities, again, SysML V1 has had 20 years of integration advancements. So those will take a while, although I have a feeling they'll be a little quicker than 20 years. And then to the point, it's not released yet. So it's not released for production yet, although we should have ours in November of this year. And then like any first releases, there's a few bug fixes and a few optimizations that still need to happen. So what now? Explore, I highly recommend you explore our early access our early experience program and start learning now. There may be a learning curve, maybe there isn't. It's up to you how quickly you learn and how probably excited you may be about it. Begin the process, identify your roadmaps as to what profiles you need, what customizations you need. If you can work with some of the integrations not being there yet. Identify a small pilot project and start with a non-production area. And then once it's approved for production, I say, let that adventure begin. Now, who's excited? So to know really where you're going, you must first understand where we've been. Sean is going to talk about the history and the deeper technical aspects with you. Sean, take it away.
Okay, so as Marissa mentioned, it's actually a little bit of a surprise for me as well. SysML has been around, or at least the idea of it, for about 20, 25 years. So we started back, well, I say we, the original creators of SysML started back in 2001 with the idea to customize UML because UML is more software centric. So we needed customizations that were more specific to systems engineering. 4 years later, we released the draft specification of SysML in 2005, and it was formally released with version 1 in 2007. Fast forward 10 years, and it became an international standard for the first time, and it continues to be updated today with 1.7. At the same time as the international standard was released, our first RFP for SysML V2 came out. And then fast forward to now, 8 years later, we are on the cusp of having it formally released by OMG's board. So there's quite a long history of SysML, and now let's get into the more specific advancements of this specific language, and then we're going to tie back to some of the things, the food for thought that Marissa was talking about with an actual process from OMG's website. So a couple of the improvements that are key for SysML V2 are the fact that it's no longer based off of UML, which was software centric. It still has a lot of the same ideas and is less formally based off of UML and other standards. But now it's actually built off of a new modeling language to model other modeling languages, which is kernel. So you can be much more precise now for when you're building out our language, because we have a specific modeling language for that. And so they have semantics and things that are now able to be modeled at a lower level and flowed back up to SysML V2. We also have textual notation. That's a huge game changer. So now this will enable not only people who are a little bit more software centric, but it also enables artificial intelligence and being able to even just have another representation of the model so that you can see and have an idea of how the tool is implementing this textual notation. So you have it as a standard, and then you can flip back and forth and see what the tool is actually interpreting that as in the containment window. So it has been a great boost, at least in my experience. We also have a standard API now, so this makes it much easier to connect between tools and do future integrations. And then we have now with elements this concept of occurrences. So this allows us to take instances that we had in V1, which are now called snapshots, and actually see what happens between snapshots. And this is going to allow us to do real 4D modeling where it's necessary. We also have visualizations that are based more concretely on view and viewpoint. We had these concepts in V1, but they're much more standard now, and it allows us to give precise definitions of how our diagram should be represented. And it also extends our visualization capabilities. And then we also have this expression language for analysis, which allows us to use the SysML textual syntax to actually parse the model itself. It's no longer necessary, it's still possible to use other modeling or other scripting languages like we did in V1. We relied on that very heavily, or maybe structured expressions where you built some different opaque behaviors and things like that, or used opaque behaviors. Now it's built into the language. And so this makes it a lot easier to be able to analyze the model, as you'll see once you get started. And then probably the most marketed feature of SysML V2 is the consistency of definition and usage. So what this means is now everything has a definition and everything has a usage. But another implication of that is the fact that we no longer need definition for in order to decompose parts in this case. So it's much easier to do that back of the napkin type modeling. So there's two different ways that we can transform the model. We can either do it manually by understanding the specification. There is a specification for the transformation of V1 elements to V2. This is going to require you to not only understand SysML V1 and the original intent of the model, but also what it comes over to in SysML V2 and whether or not that makes sense. And we'll kind of get to that once we get to a process. It's a lot more tedious, but it's great for learning and it's much more flexible. Or you may be using a tool that has an automated transformation, such as ours, and we'll showcase this later. This is fast and efficient, but it's not fully compatible yet. It's still being worked on, and there's certainly going to be more verification needed to ensure that your model is correct because we are going to be following a specification. Now, there are things that you could do, ways that things are mapped that may not make sense to you. So there's going to be some post processing that we're going to need to do to ensure that our model is equivalent. And it is also the automated transformation is also really great for a quick start. So if you just want to get going with SysML V2 and transform your model and then just edit it on the other side, or you just want to see kind of what it would look like. So maybe you're doing a pilot or something like that. It's great for understanding how things transform and just getting that foundation at the beginning while you're playing with things. Okay, so now we have a SysML V1 to V2 transition guide. So this is content that is derived from the OUSD publicly available material. And the link is at the bottom of this presentation. And this is a snippet from that website. And so we're going to go over this, and then we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail. And then we have this modeled because it helps us to understand the process more, or at least as a systems engineer, helps me to understand the process more when we model it. Um, and so we'll take a look at that, and then we will use our latest tool to actually transform it into SysML V2. So the first thing that you want to do is establish a transition team. This team is going to be responsible for all of the transition process from V1 to V2. Then you need to develop a strategy and plan. So this team will be in charge of executing this plan. So there needs to be some careful thought about how this is going to develop. You need to start with small chunks and and then get eventually through this feedback loop that we'll see here, your entire model. So once you have a strategy and plan, we'll conduct pilots, assess the impacts, and validate your modeling practices. Then it's time to update all of the modeling infrastructure. This includes the guidelines, the methodologies, tools and environments, training and metrics. And then it's time to actually deploy those projects. But we're not done because, again, as a part of our transition plan, we want to do this incrementally. So we're going to start small and then we're going to loop back. Once we have one piece, we're going to loop back through this process and we're going to do it again until we've completed the entire transition. So this is a guideline. Again, you can read more information on the website. It's very, very detailed, and you can also see it from a modeling perspective here in a second. So to dive a little bit more deeply into the 4 steps of this conversion process, we are going to start by pre-processing the SysML V1 model. So we need to ensure there's no errors in the model. We need to ensure that we remove anything that was a tool-specific extension or customization. Those are not going to be able to be ported over, except maybe in very certain circumstances. If you're using the same tool before and after, they may support some specific extensions there, but likely that you will be needing to move on and recreate a lot of these. You need to identify any circular dependencies and apply your different modeling conventions, such as consistent naming. The idea is you want a very clean model before you start the transformation process. And you need to understand that model very well as well. So now we are going to actually transform that model from V1 to V2. And again, there's two different methods of doing this: manual and or by a tool. Um, so whichever way you do it, you need to execute the specification transformation rules, and then that will transform each individual element into V2 elements, and then you'll need something or some way to validate the model and produce warnings and perform manual inspection afterwards as well. So once we've actually transformed the model to V2, we've cleared the warnings and things like this. Now it's time to fully leverage and post-process the model so that we can leverage all of SysML V2 has to offer. So we'll be reorganizing and refactoring and applying this usage-focused modeling paradigm. So what does this mean? So in the specification, many things map over from, for instance, an activity comes over as an action definition. And when we do this, it may not make sense to have every single activity come over as a definition. Maybe it makes more sense for it to be an action usage. So this is the part where we're going in and we're modifying those specific elements, making them usages so that we can better conform to SysML V2, but also utilize the fact that we don't need definitions everywhere. So once we've done this, we need to validate the SysML V2 model. So we need to ensure that the V2 model now reflects the same exact intent that we had in SysML V1. So we need to also compare those models. So you may have at the start, we're not going to have anything where we can automatically reproduce the views that we had in SysML V1. There's a working group that's dedicated to this. They're doing an excellent job. And eventually, we may have these capabilities built in. But until then, we're going to need to reproduce many of these views. And anytime you might have automated reports, things like that, these are going to need to be rebuilt and make sure that they reflect the same sort of documentation intent that you had in SysML V1 again. And then compare the execution and analysis results to make sure these are the same. So this, as Marissa mentioned earlier, this will be a future capability as well. There is a specification for behavior analysis that will be getting released a little bit later after the V2 specification. And once that is completed, then we'll be able to implement it into the tool. Okay, so which tool vendor do you start with? Well, again, from the same website, you probably don't want my biased opinion, but this website on OMG has gone and a third party has asked each tool vendor to evaluate their own tool. So all of this information, except for the columns in red, have been evaluated by the tool vendors themselves. The ones in red, this means that they did not respond to this group And so the group looked at videos on their websites and their marketing for those tool vendors, and they developed that information. As you can see in yellow highlight, our tool, our products have the most at 11 of any of the other tool vendors. So we are going to be highly compatible with the specification, and we hope you will use our tool and continue to use it. Now, on to the demonstration. So I promised that we were going to take a look at that process in a model form, and then we were going to transform that into SysML V2. So let's take a look. So we can make this model available to everyone. This is essentially the same as this website here. This is and the link is in the PowerPoint presentation. We wanted to break this down in case you didn't want to read all of these words. We broke it down into a model for you so you can open this and you can see a little bit more information, in my opinion, all up front. So we can see all the stakeholders that we need. We can see that we need a V1 and a V2 tool. We also need a transformation tool, and we can see who's involved. We need to have our project managers, our systems engineers, IT engineer to set up the infrastructure and the tooling, and software developers, maybe to rewrite any plugins or other customizations that you had for your tool. And then we can go into this and we can see the actual process. I'm not going to read through all of these. I just want to give you an overview of this model so that you can see that this content is represented here. But we're not going to go into the details right now because there's just not enough time. But with that being said, now we can see an example where we have all of these different um, nested activities and things. So we can see that this is a fairly simple model, but it'll be very quick to transform. So let's go ahead and start that. So we just go to File, Export to, SysML V2 model, and then I'm just going to rewrite over the model that I had already created, so that we're doing it from scratch. And so it gives this loading screen, tells us that it's converting it, and voila, we're done. It even gives you an Excel spreadsheet um, that makes it to where we are able to review all of the elements and properties that were not migrated. And these, in some cases, these are due to the fact that they're diagrams. In other cases, they just have not, we haven't gotten to those types of elements yet. So it's good to take a look at those, but they're not necessary to stress out over them at this point. Okay. So now we have the model, everything's transformed. Now, what do we do now? We are going to create a view because we do have to recreate these views, and we're just going to drop in some elements. So before we had this transition, and we can go and we can look at its parts, and we can see the relationships to all of these stakeholders again. And in this case, it transformed them to parts. That's okay. And then we want to actually take a look at the activities that we saw. And we can do this in a couple of ways. We could just display the first top level action, or let's go ahead and let's just do this recursively and see what happens. So we can see that a lot just happened. Let me go into presentation mode. And we can see this include use case here. This was our main use case that we had before. And then we can see this perform action showing us the actual transition. And we can see not only all of these top level actions, but just with that one button click, we're able to see the nested actions as well that were carried over. All of these, you saw in SysML V1 we had that little fork. Now we have these exposed at the moment, and so you can see everything. That's just because we did everything recursively, and we didn't just show that first layer. So you can see that everything in that previous model was ported over. This view, which would normally take, if we did this manually, even by dragging these on, this would take a little bit of time, and we did it with just one button click. So it's pretty powerful um, of a transformation tool, and it works. I'm very pleased to see the progress with it. So with that, I will pass it back off to Marissa to close us out.
Thank you, Sean. That was awesome. Really excited to see the progress that we've made and the capabilities coming out. We have linked in our presentation a few of the resources that Sean has been referencing. Additionally, we'd love to answer any questions if we've still got time. Gaetana, are there any questions we can answer?
Actually, no. So we don't have the questions on LinkedIn or on YouTube. However, I have my question when I listened to your masterclass. So, Marissa, you mentioned an early experience program. Can you tell me more, and to our audience also, how can we get the access to this early program?
Yes, wonderful question. Thank you. If you are an active customer of ours and you are active with support, please reach out to me and I will connect you with the right people to get you the access codes to be able to start practicing with our SysML V2.
Okay, so we need just to write an email for you.
Correct. Yep, just send me an email and I will connect you to the right people based on whatever geography that you're in. And I'm in North America, but I've got colleagues in, of course, all the world. So we'll get you connected to the right people.
Okay, and I have another question. It will be for Sean about training. Well, I know that it's really complicated, and for people it will be very useful to have some trainings about SysML V2. What are the plans here, and how?
So we have actually already presented quite a bit of training so far. We have a one-day course that is available that we can, if you reach out to us, that we can provide to you. And we're currently working on a 5-day training that will be available in November. And we're actually going to be working with the local NCOSI chapter of North Texas. We're going to be able to invite about 30 people from that group on site here in Dallas to be the first ones to take that class completely free, if you're a member. So that's pretty excited. And then exciting. And then we will also have that available after that time. It'll take us a little bit longer, but eventually it will be available online as well if you don't want to dedicate the 5 days. And this will be a comprehensive training that will include all of the different concepts of structure and behavior and views, as well as the new topics of occurrences, times, and filters, and things like that. And as well as Magic Grid and being able to use a methodology. The last 2 days will be a lab that will cover a methodology as well, so that you can see an example of not only how to model, but how to model within a specific methodology.
Okay, so thanks a lot. I see I have a few comments. Okay, we have one question. I will read it. Is this export to SysML V2 command available with the next cameo release?
Yes, I believe that it will be in November, not the next one. The next is Refresh 3, which is, I believe, going to be released in July. The official release for 26X is going to be when we get access to SysML V2, and that will be later in November.
Okay, so thanks a lot. So also we got question about the trainings for SysML V2 directed to Middle East.
We will be training our individuals throughout that represent different parts around the globe. So I think that we will have some individuals out there. I'm not as familiar with who is responsible for each part of the globe, but we will certainly be doing our best to provide that training to everyone, and then you'll be able to reach out to your CATIA Magic representative out there, and they should find someone for you that is competent and able to give that training for you.
And we should also have an online training available at some point, correct, Sean?
Yes, that will come later. Probably will take towards the maybe towards the end of 26 or the middle.
Sweet.
Okay, and the last question, if I want to change logic for this transformation to SysML V2, then can I get any open API support on that part?
That's a very good question. I actually don't know at the moment. This may be something where are we able to respond afterwards in comments, Katana?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So, and everyone, you see the QR code for our cyber systems community. You will be able to ask questions under the post for this replay, and also follow the news on this community. There are plenty of very valuable content, not only for SysML V2, but for everything what relates to cyber systems, and our experts will answer to your questions there. So thanks a lot for your presentation. Thanks a lot for your questions. And meet us next month for our next masterclass, where you will learn new things. Thanks a lot, and see you in June.
Thank you.